All right, how are you doing? It is Styles here for another edition of Happy Hour Live. Today we've got Sean from the band Grey Daze joining me, and I've been looking forward to this chat. This album, the song that you hear on the station called Sickness, is climbing up the charts, and Sean is joining me now. Sean, how are you, my brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time and being on here with us. There's so much to talk about involving this project for Grey Daze, of course, with Chester Bennington's vocals on there. But first and foremost, how does it feel at this point right now with this song? I looked here on the chart, the active rock radio chart. You're sitting at number 2. This thing could go number 1.
You know, that would be amazing if it did. It's just we did this with our friend Chester in mind, and that's what we completed the project with. So that type of stuff, as awesome as it is just a bonus. So, it'd be great. I mean, what a testament to the hard work we put in if it does reach number 1. And that's amazing.
And this album, Amends, you talk about the hard work you've put into it. It's been a 2-year process to make this thing happen?
Yeah, a little bit more than that, but yeah, about 2.5 years.
Okay, so take me through this whole process because, unfortunately we lost Chester. You guys had started work on what would end up being this record, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll walk you through it, the timeline. So just a little bit of backstory. Chester and I were business partners and best of friends through all the way up until the time he passed away. In a company called Club Tattoo was our business. So we talked on the phone. We hung out a lot. We had business conversations, but we worked out together. We went on vacations together. So it wasn't uncommon for us to talk, 1 to 2 times a week. 2016 October, I get a phone call from him, just a normal call, and I think he was just finishing up the One More Light album with Linkin Park guys. We were discussing putting together another big club tattoo party for our company. We used to throw these huge parties where 3, 4, 5,000 people would show up. And then we would jump on stage and play a big show in front of this. It was a big, big event, a lot of fun. But we hadn't done one in a couple of years. So we started talking about doing another one. And he says, I've been thinking about that. And the next one we do, I want to put Grey Daze back together for that. He says, I miss having a rock band of my own. I miss playing with you. Let's make this happen. So we worked through the logistics of that. And basically, we figured out that mid 2017 to late 2017 was the timeline of when we would be able to pull off a reunion show and a anniversary party for Club Tattoo. And so all the things that entails. Once we started making announcements, people started hearing about this. We started getting promoters calling us all over the world, wanting us to play shows. So that kind of sparked some more conversations. As we were talking, we just started talking back and forth. Like, look, we have this catalog of songs that we can go back and retrack and rework and then put them out properly. And that way we have a record coming out around the same time we do this reunion show and we start taking on these other shows. So that was the plan. So the plan was for me to go in the studio. We started working with a producer named Sylvia Massey. We picked 3 tracks. We'd go in, we'd work on some of the material. I'd email it to him. We'd talk over the phone. We'd go over our notes. Hey, I want this to change. Let's do that. Back and forth. And then once we started working on that process, we realized we needed to modernize the songs a little bit. Otherwise, they were going to sound just a little dated. So that's how that concept came in. And then Chester had been writing 4 or 5 new songs, and he'd play those for me over the phone. And so we were excited about recording new material as well. We were waiting for him to get off the road, and we were either going to send a producer out on the road with him to record the vocals, depending on the progress of the record, or as soon as he was done with his obligations, we'd bring him in the studio and we'd record as a band and do it that way. So that was the setup. But obviously, July 20th, Chester passes away, and then the Grey Daze project just got put on hold.
And now you're sitting back, and I was watching the making of the record, and your former guitarist Jason finds these tapes that have all of Chester's original vocals from the old albums, which end up being a part of this new record. What was that like when you found out that all this material was still sitting there and you could use it?
So we had 2 full records. The first record I had the masters for. That's what we were working on when Chester was still alive. And I'm not sure if Jason found his masters for the first album when Chester was still alive, or if it was after he passed. I'm
Okay.
not sure when that happened in the timeline, but we did bring in those tracks to integrate them into the reworkings after Chester passed. So it was now that I think that out loud, Jason probably did find those tapes after Chester had passed. But the original idea was to rework the masters that I had already had.
Okay. So you rework these masters and you have all this vocal material from Chester. What was it like sitting in the studio and listening to those being worked into the new versions of the songs you're working on?
So initially, when I decided about 6 months after Chester passed, I decided we're going to finish this record. So I went to the band, got them to sign on. I went to Talinda, got her approval, went to Chester's parents, got their approval. We started in the studio. We picked 5 producers. We started stripping away the music and just listening to those vocal tracks to see what we had. And it was amazing. We hear this just unbelievable raw performance on these tapes, and we decide we're going to set all of the old music aside, and we're actually going to work on restructuring, rearranging these vocals and getting them to where we think they're awesome. Then we'll start rewriting all of the music around Chester's vocals. And that's really how it started. And then we started writing with the producers, and it was amazing. It was the first couple months of this was just listening to these vocal tracks, and it was painful. We had some tears, and the thing that I think I got the most that I got out of this was sitting there listening to these vocal tracks. These songs tend to take on new meaning and much deeper understanding of the pain that Chester was in, even 20 years ago. These lyrics for us, Chester and I wrote the lyrics together. When I was writing with him, I was coming from more of a philosophical, esoteric point of view, like what if, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the 90s, writing about sadness, loneliness, emptiness, pain, all that stuff was kind of in vogue at the time. So we were a post-grunge band. That's kind of what we were writing about too. But for him, it was real. Like those words and those emotions was exactly what he was feeling. And I didn't understand that until after he passed and I listened to those lyrics.
Definitely haunting to say the least. As you're piecing this all together, you're writing those new musical pieces to the lyrics. How many songs did you start with? And you whittled it down. I think there's 11 on the record, right? But how much did you have to choose from when you put it all together?
We had well over 20 songs to choose
Okay.
from, but we started with 17, and we actually worked on 17 tracks during the whole process, and then eliminated some. When we started feeling like we had a grouping of songs that felt like they belonged on a record together, we started pushing some of the other material away. Like we have some great songs that didn't make this record, so they'll make the next record.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to ask. Are we going to see that in the light of day at some point? But there's the answer.
Well, I guess it all depends on if this record is received well, and it seems like it's going very well so far. I mean, what you just alluded to, how the fans are reacting, and all these things are great, and we're seeing thousands of messages every day from fans, and they just really love the emotional connection they get through Chester. So it feels to me like, yes, you will see at least one more, if not 2 more records.
That's fantastic to hear. You run multiple businesses, so you do Club Tattoo, but you're also doing this on the side. How hard was that for you to manage all of that and still be able to produce this record? Because again, you said it took almost 2.5 years.
It's very difficult, but I have a really awesome team that work for Club Tattoo. I mean, basically have managers, regional managers, and staff that they picked up the slack for me, and they kind of run the company without me, and they're doing a great job. And but my time management was really more the issue than anything else. It just I get pulled in a million directions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a book. I'm doing a lot of things that require a lot of hyper focus, to get right. And this was the Grey Daze project wasn't one of those things I could do in my spare time. I had to come at this thing full force. First of all, I had to fund in the beginning, I funded everything with my own money. And I spent well over $100,000 of my own money to finish this record because that's how important it was to us. Eventually we ended up signing a deal with Loma Vista, and then we're able to partner with the label. But the intention from the get-go was just to get the record finished.
Okay. You mentioned the label that you signed with, that you're releasing the album through. How did you eventually decide what label to sign with? Because that's a big choice, and I would have to figure you had a lot of options out there for people wanting a record with Chester's voice.
It was so simple because to me the choice was made for us. We did a very small showcase. We invited 5 labels to the
Okay.
studio to hear what we were doing because they were contacting us. So we decided to do a showcase day. They came in, we let them hear 3 songs. All 5 of the labels wanted the project. All 5 of them were excited. I'm sorry, 4 of them wanted the project. 4 of them were excited. They all talked about making money and we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And only one guy out of the group understood why we were doing this. And that was Tom Wally. He turned around and he has a poker face from hell, man. You cannot tell what this guy is thinking. And he just said, "Oh, cool. Thanks for letting me hear it." And was literally ready to get up and leave. And I was like, "Well, can I get some feedback?" He goes, "Would you like some feedback?" And I said, "Please." And he goes, "Well, I think what you're doing is really cool, but I only want to work with things that are great. And I think this has the potential to be great, but there's some things that need to change. And I only want to do it if we're doing it to protect his legacy and make sure that we're doing this for the right reason. This cannot be a money grab. This cannot be basically exploitive. This has to come across in a very clear and concise way that makes sense and that is honoring Chester." As soon as those words came out of his mouth, I was like, this is the guy we need to partner with, because it had nothing to do with making money or doing this. It was all about protecting Chester's image, Chester's posterity, Chester's legacy, and honoring him in a way that made sense. And so Tom got it right away. So, and then we shook hands, and he left, and literally I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks. And he finally called me, says, I've been thinking about this. What do you think about working with me, Sean? And I said, honestly, Tom, you're the only guy I want to work with. There was 2 very large offers from other record labels that were way more than what we signed for, but we did it for the right reason. It didn't matter about money. It was about doing this project right.
And it seems like everything is working and falling into place. Like you said, the fan base is starting to hear the songs. You got, 4 out there right now?
4 singles, yeah.
4 singles. So everybody, from what I can see, is loving it so far. One of which, not the song that's on the air right now, is Soul Song. And Chester's son directed the video, but he's also doing backing vocals. Explain to me how all that came to be.
So we were in the studio probably our 3rd or 4th time, and then I'm just standing in the control room, and something just kind of hit me in the chest like a lightning bolt. It was really odd, and I just blurted out. I go, "Chuck got to record with his kids," and Kristen just looked over at me. I said, "We should invite his kids in to come and sing. He never got to do that. It's something we can give back to Chester. That's something we can do for him." And then the band, they got excited. They're like, "Cool, we'll reach out." So I reached out to all of the children. I reached out to Linda, Tyler, Lily, Lila, but Talinda had felt that the children were a little too young, the 3 youngest ones, which I totally understood. I reached out to Draven and Samantha, and Draven liked the idea, but he was just a little apprehensive. I don't think he knew how to quite digest it and get comfortable with it, which was fine. And then we reached out to Jamie, and Jamie said yes right away. And we gave him a choice of 2 songs between Soul Song and The Syndrome, and he chose Soul Song, and he came in and he sings backing vocals in the chorus with his dad. And I think that was a moment for me that was really special, because it's something that I know we got to do for Chester that he didn't get to do in his lifetime.
That's really cool and really special. That video is really, it definitely hits a few heartstrings, because you read the description about how his son took that and Jamie took it and went with the direction of not only the lyrics, but also how he felt his connection to his father. So it's a very cool video, and awesome to see that you guys brought the kids and got them involved. In fact, your kids are involved, right?
Yeah, both my sons play drums on track each, B12 and The Syndrome, and they're both great percussionists. So we brought them in, and they got to show their dad how it was done.
Well, that had to be a great special moment for you, just to see that
awesome.
The kids are following in line, if you will, or
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's really cool.
Everybody that we had them involved for the right reasons. To your point about Jamie's video, we literally just gave him the reins and said, whatever you think is right for this video, go ahead and do it. He had asked us to do a video. I didn't really have anything for him to work on until the label decided they wanted to do Soul Song as a single. And so I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, here's your shot. Do you want it?" And he said, "Yeah." So we let him build the treatment. We let him build the story for the video, and he did it on his own with a guy named Mark Silverstein. And they literally, I wasn't there during the photo shoot. I literally let them go and shoot and direct it and edited everything, and they delivered it back to us. And I think we had a couple of little things, and that was it. So they did a good job. But the other people, the other guests that we had involved in the record as well, everybody that we invited in either had a special relationship with Chester. They either loved Chester, Chester either loved them, or he just never got a chance to play with these guys, or just a good friendship, like Marcos from POD, just a great friendship there, and never got to play. The guy, Head and Monkey from Korn, Chester loved those guys and respected them tremendously. But there was a vocalist that Chester had met named LP, who we brought in to sing, but he loved her vocals. He loved a song called Lost in You. And that's how that whole thing came. So she sings a duet with him on a song called Shouting Out. So there was a lot of special people involved, and they all did it for the right reason. They did it as a way to say thank you and to give back to something that they felt was so important in the musical world.
That's just so cool. Again, I can't wait for this. Amends is the new album that comes out on June 26th. And you guys pushed it back for obvious reasons because of COVID-19, but also you did it for the fans as well. Explain to me why you guys did this a certain way, because you could have just released this thing digitally and made everyone wait for the physical.
I didn't feel right about that. That was brought up to us, and I didn't feel good about the first guy in line who waited and jumped online and bought the vinyl or the CD, and then is told, "Oh, thanks for being first and supporting the band first, but you get to be last in line to get it." That doesn't feel right to me. And then second was logistics. I mean, the whole world shut down. Our manufacturing plants literally closed down. Our distribution centers literally closed down. Our record label, literally everybody at the label is working from home. It's a nightmare logistically. So nobody wants to throw a party in the middle of a hurricane. So we just decided, look, this has been several years. Let's just put this thing out at the right time. Let's not be in a hurry to fail. Let's do it the right way when it feels good. And now it's starting to feel good. And June 26th is going to feel great.
Yeah, I can't wait for it again. Sickness sitting at number 2 on the active rock radio charts. Hopefully going to peak out at number 1. Chester will have another number 1 song, this time with, as you said, his own rock band, which is kind of an interesting statement for him to say something like that. Did he just want to do something that he could really have a better insight to in terms of the project, or?
Well, look, I please don't. It's not an insult to Linkin Park, because those guys, Chester worked his ass off with those guys, and those guys put in a ton of work and deserved every bit of success. But Chester was one of those guys that liked multiple creative outlets. That's why you saw him do things like Dead by Sunrise and Stone Temple Pilots and Kings of Chaos and Grey Daze. He liked multiple creative outlets because that's just how he operated. He got one thing from Grey Daze and one thing from Linkin Park. He also wasn't sharing the microphone with anybody. And that's an important distinction between the two bands. Is this got to be something that was him from start to finish on each song. And I think he liked the ownership of that. And it wasn't a diss to anything else. It's just he wanted that additional creative outlet that brought him something different.
You talk about those creative outlets and things he had. You also were in another band with him. I think it was called Bucket of Weenies.
I was in like 4 bands with Chester, but yeah, I was in Bucket of Weenies with our good friend Cheese and Mike Rouse, and then Ryan Shuck, who was also in Dead by Sunrise with Chester as well, and Orgy. So yeah, we used to really have a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I've ever had in any band. And Chester and Ryan will both attest the same thing. We laughed more than we've laughed literally in our entire lifetimes during the times with that band. The most fun ever.
So what made that band the most fun? Was it the set you played, or just the camaraderie of the group you had?
The camaraderie. We were hanging out with each other 24/7 for months when we did that project, and we just the laughing and the stupid joke telling and the messing with each other, and and the playing music was fun too. But literally that was secondary. It was just so much fun.
What was Bucket of Weenies? Were you guys just a cover band, or?
Well, it was a cover band. It was just something that we could go out and perform and have fun. But at the same time, we did Grey Daze songs. We did Dead by Sunrise songs. So I guess we were covering our own songs.
Okay.
But we also did David Bowie and other stuff too. So it was just fun. Just something that we did for fun.
All right. You speak of all the fun. Can you tell me a fun story from the time in that band with Chester?
Ooh. Yes, I can. Right. Okay. So we get hired by RJ Reynolds to play a show in Albuquerque. So we fly out to Albuquerque, and we're there 2 days early because we have to rehearse. We hadn't rehearsed in a couple months or whatever, so we're out there rehearsing, and RJ Reynolds does this thing where they take over like this dilapidated hotel motel like from the 50s, and they turn it into like this Zombieland kind of set where they have it was like Zombieland meets Las Vegas. It was a very interesting thing. So we get up there and we start playing, but you got to keep in mind it was like a corporate event. So there's people that work all for the same company there, and there's a couple thousand people there or whatever. But he's used to playing, you know, rabid fans in the crowd. These were not rabid fans. These were people who had no idea who the hell we were, and they just were showing up to a corporate event. So when we start playing, we get 4 or 5 songs into the set list, and this is when Chester and us, we were still partying quite a bit. He goes, "Hey, everybody," and the crowd just kind of gave us this half-assed response, and he goes, "All right." So he lights a cigarette, and he's got a bottle of Jack Daniels, and he goes, "All right, mother effers, how's it feel to be getting lung cancer and liver disease?" But he did it just as a genuine thing, because he was smoking and drinking, but not realizing we're playing a corporate party for RJ Reynolds, one of the biggest tobacco and alcohol in the world. And literally shut the power off on the stage in the middle of our set, and 2 ginormous bodyguards come pick me up off of my drum set, gather all of the guys like in a herd, and literally walk us to the edge of the property and kick us out of the party.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we're all literally calling our wives at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Don't spend any money. We just lost our tour for RJ Reynolds. That was funny. And I remember Chester felt so bad. And we just, it was just one of those things. To me, I kept telling, I go, Chester, that was the most punk rock moment I've ever gotten to have on stage. We got to tell RJ Reynolds to shove it up their ass.
Yeah, no lie.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. So, we lost a lot of money, but who cares? It was, to me, that was a funny story. And I've got hundreds of them, but that was a good
one. That's amazing is what that is. Was that the end of the band at that point, or did you guys do a couple more shows?
I think we played a couple more shows, but we lost that tour, and then we had like 30 shows, or maybe it was 18 shows, but 18 shows over 30 days or something. It was a good paying gig for all of us, including him, and we lost out.
Wow. So you talk about that favorite memory there in that band. Do you have another favorite or just funny memory of Chester in general from the time you guys know each other? Because he was 15 when he joined Grey Daze, right?
Well, our first band was SD and his friends, and Grey Daze came out in 93, and he was 15, I was 17, and we broke up in 98. So we were together for 6 years, and I've got 100 stories. I remember we did a showcase for a record label. This probably was 96, 97. And we had these big pyrotechnics. One of our friends, he had said, "Hey, I got this pyrotechnics gear. You guys are doing this big showcase. Let's put it up on stage and use it." And we had never done pyro. We were a post-grunge band. Like, it didn't fit our image. We're like, sure, it's going to add to the stage show. So we let this guy set up. We didn't rehearse it. We just set it up. And we do this big intro. And as we're coming out, we literally have a sold out show, probably 1,600 people. We do this one moment where we all, kind of build momentum and then hit like an entry point. And Chester jumps over the stage, and these giant pyro things go off. And we thought a cannon exploded. These flames shot up 30 feet, melted the lights up on the stage. And we literally, all of us just froze, like, oh my God, in the middle of the song. And Chester's crunched down like in the fetal position, and we just all kind of looked at each other, and then I just count us in to continue the song. So that was a funny memory, and
no one would
just stuff like that.
Burned though, right?
No one was. It felt like, honestly, it was hot enough to where you felt like you were getting singed, but nobody got hurt.
Okay, well, that's good. That's at least a plus there, man.
The club never let us bring back pyrotechnics again, though.
I'm surprised they ever let you play there again.
Yeah, hey, that was a venue we sold out all the time. So yeah, they didn't pass that up.
No, well, and you guys in the heyday of Grey Daze were selling out venues left and right. I mean, you were packing in like 800, 1,200 people, right?
Yep, on a regular basis. Yeah,
that is impressive. I mean, back then in the early days of the band, and here we are on the eve or on the horizon of the Amends album coming out. Do you see maybe a tribute show to Chester with the Grey Daze material, maybe after all this funk is gone and we can get back into enjoying life again?
So we are open to a tribute show.
Okay,
What we're not open to is replacing Chester. That is not,
absolutely.
we are not going to do that. But we would definitely entertain a tribute show if we got the right players that wanted to come and sing, and probably use, 2 or 3 guest singers that would come in and perform for Chester, make it about Chester in a tribute fashion. We would absolutely consider that.
Awesome. Well, I hope we can make that happen. Amends again out on June 26th. The song Sickness out right now here on the station, #2 on the chart. Hopefully, going to hit #1. Looking at everything that you have done in this project, because you brought so many great people in from producers to musicians to help rework these songs and really make Chester shine. What is the proudest moment you have right now with the project itself?
Man, that's a good question. The proudest moment. I think for me, the proudest moment so far has been hearing Sickness on the radio and it getting the attention that I think is worthy of Chester. That's the proudest moment.
That's cool.
Uh, the original versions of these songs got buried by Warner Brothers and management early on in his success with Linkin Park, which is fine. I understand why they did that, but it always bummed me out that the history of the band got erased, and the music pretty much, had been erased, which is why this makes it so special to be able to release it in a way that it really is deserving of the attention for Chester. So that's the proudest moment so far.
Awesome. And do we have the idea of what the next single is going to be? Because you have 4 songs out now before the record comes out, just to give people a little taste because of the delay. But do we have an idea what the next single might be that's going to be out to radio?
Yeah, you know what? I'll leak this right now. This is the first person I've told. It's going to be a track called B12, and it features Monkey and Head from Corn.
Nice. I heard in the documentary, the 8-part documentary, that one of the other radio stations, like in your guys' back in your early days, had played that song. That was like their favorite to get out to the world.
Yeah, we actually had some regional radio play with that track, but the new rendition of it is so different from the original. It's
Okay.
very powerful. It sounds like a Great Days Corn mashup. It's really cool.
Interesting. So as you bring, Head and Monkey into the studio for this, what was their approach to taking on this song and even reworking it?
Dude, they were so respectful. I couldn't believe it. And I've known Head for a while. He's such a sweet guy. I didn't know Monkey that well, but the two of them were so incredibly respectful, and they took it seriously. They showed up, they had done their homework, they had written parts for it. They contributed so much to the writing process. They're just incredible guys. And I know that Chester was happy that they actually played on this. And it's just so cool because they both told me out after they did it. They agreed to do it and they were excited about it, but after they did it, they shared some stories with me that were just really touching, that they really did it they wanted to say thank you to Chester. And I thought that was really cool.
Interesting. And did they explain what was the reasons why, if you don't, if you can say?
I'd rather Monkey be the guy to tell
Okay.
that story, but man, it's a great story. And I was really touched when he told me, because I didn't know anything about it. And I didn't know until after we had recorded with them. And he just told this really awesome story. And I was like, you know what, dude, that is just so special. They're just,
Yeah.
the two of them are just, they're really class act human beings. That's the best thing I can say. They're just really class act.
Cool. Well, look forward to the song when it finally does drop. Obviously, Sickness going to be the priority right now. Take me back to the last day in the studio. You finally wrap everything up. Obviously, the songs are got to go out to mixing and mastering, but take me back to that last day when you guys wrap. What's the vibe in the studio?
We were all kind of high on life at that point because we knew what we had accomplished. It kind of sunk in. It was a little bit of sadness too, because you get a little bit of closure, and you have to say goodbye to your friend again, because that's really the only time we get to be around him is when he's singing to us. Right.
Right.
So there was a little bit of that, but I would say the mood in the room, was a little bit of burnout on adrenaline, because we've been working
Mhm.
12-hour days for, I think, 7 straight days on that last run out to LA. And then there was elation. We were elated that we had completed it, because there were so many obstacles to get this thing done, man. There was a lot of obstacles, and the timeline took us, over 2 years to get it done. So I think all of us cried. We all did a toast to Chester, and we carried this little portrait of Chester every time we were in the studio, and we just made sure that we all just paid homage and said goodbye and thanked him and said some nice words and left on a high note.
Now, fast forward, take me to when you get the masters back. You're in your car, in your office, listening to the very first mixes, the very first mastering of the record.
So I would say the masters for us was probably for myself a little anticlimactic, because I had been listening to these mixes hundreds of times at this point. So the mastering job was amazing, but I think the more cathartic thing, or the more emotional experience for me, was listening to the mixes, the way Jay Baumgartner mixed them, and we would argue and go back and forth because we're all passionate about it, right? We hear the music a certain way. You need this part to be turned up and this, and then finally he just said, "Look, guys, I'm doing this project because you wanted me to do this project. You got to let me interpret the music the way I interpret the music." And he was right. So you know what? You're right. We're listening to it. I'm listening to it from my drum stool. Mace is listening to it from his bass guitar. So we had some give and take, and had to compromise a little bit on making the mixes as good as they can be. And I think Jay did a phenomenal job mixing this record.
Awesome. Yeah. And, Sickness sounds just fantastic. Of course, all the 4 of the tracks that are out now. I really dig the tracks sometimes. I think you guys did a fantastic rendition of that. Now, I don't know the original, but this current version is really cool. And just the vibe itself of the whole song is really great.
Thank you, man. We spoke about what the lyrical content and meaning was on most of the music, but that's one of the few Grey Daze songs that talks about hope. And to me, that was such an important song. With Adam and Tom at the label, when we were talking about the next single, we actually bumped sometimes into that rotation. 2 reasons. One, is one of the best songs in my opinion. But 2, the message during this whole COVID breakdown thing, shutdown, that kind of just brought a message of hope. And we thought, how appropriate is it for us to deliver this message at this time? And that's really why that song ended up coming out at that time.
No, that's perfect. And right now, everyone, I know I'm working from my basement. Yeah, I think you're working from your tattoo shop, maybe. I don't know.
No, I'm at my corporate office, and I'm tucked in our body jewelry room, so I can have some privacy. We have a huge office here, but it's tough for me to get a moment of privacy. Everybody wants to knock on the door and talk to me all the time, so I have to hide out.
I appreciate you hiding out and taking the time to talk with us here today. I mean, you have so much going on. Talk to me a little bit about your tattoo shop, and you have so many locations. So let's dive into that a little bit. When did you get started into this, and how did it grow into where it is now? Because you're in Arizona and Las Vegas, right?
Yes, sir. So we opened the first shop. Mace and I were partners on the first shop in 1995 in Tempe, Arizona. After Grey Daze broke up, Chester and I didn't talk for a couple of years, but then we reconciled in 2002 when we found out our guitar player Bobby had been diagnosed with a brain tumor and the prognosis did not look good. He called me, "Hey, we are best of friends. We need to get back to that." We both apologized, kissed and made up, and I literally was hanging out with him the next weekend and picked our friendship right back up.
Oh.
2003, he calls me and says, "Hey, man, I'm doing pretty good financially. I'm having success with the band. I've always wanted to be your business partner in Club Tattoo. Let me know if you ever want to partner up with me." And then I think maybe 6 months went by and we had an opportunity to acquire another studio, and we did. And from that point, we both jumped into the partnership full blast, and we ended up opening multiple studios. We ended up opening our flagship studio in Planet Hollywood in the casino in Vegas. Then we ended up going to up to 6 studios. We've got one at the Venetian in Vegas. We've got one at the Link in Vegas, and then we've got 3 in Arizona and Fifth Avenue in Scottsdale, and then Tempe and Mesa. And we got to do these really incredible global branding collaborations with companies like Oster and Bicycle Playing Cards and Etnies Shoes. And we just got to be on this global platform that you don't see tattoo and piercing companies on. We literally got to create a global brand together, and that's what makes it so special for me.
That is so cool. And you're still continuing it on. Are you opening new shops, or are you just keeping the main ones open?
No, we'll open new shops. We get offers all the time, and right now it's about going through the right and finding the right offer, because once again, we're not in a hurry to fail. We've done that before. We opened a studio in San Francisco back in 2011 or 2012, and and it ended up not working. And there was a few metrics we missed. So we're very careful about how we do this. But yeah, we just opened our newest one at the Venetian about 6 months ago. Unfortunately, this whole pandemic shut everything down, but we'll be back up and running and come out of this whole thing stronger than we were before. And I'm sure in the next year, you'll see at least one, if not two more stores.
That's very cool. I was just going to transition to that. How have you been working with this whole COVID-19? Some states are starting to reopen at this point, tattoo shops especially. So how are you guys handling that?
So our corporate office never closed. We have a huge office where everyone has their own space. So I was able to come in and work in the office every day when I needed to. I'm writing a book that should come out at the end of the year. I've been doing a ton of promotion for the Grey Daze album. Literally, I'm doing interviews like this 4 or 5 times a day. And then lastly, the tattoo shops in Arizona were able to open on Friday of last week. So we've been open for a few days. Las Vegas doesn't look like it's going to be able to open till at least June 1st, if not June 10th or 15th. So we're crossing fingers, trying to find out what's going to happen up there. But, we're going to open to a different world than we closed in.
Absolutely. You talk about the book. So what's the book going to be about?
So the book, I just signed a deal with Entrepreneur Press. My wife and I are writing a book basically on being a small business owner, finding different marketing advantages as a small business owner. And basically, it's a David versus Goliath kind of outlook and perspective, where we're trying to teach you how to use marketing metrics and analytics that make sense for the proximity of your actual studios, or in our case, studios, but in anyone else's case, their retail business or whatever business they have. And not trying to compete against an Amazon or a Nordstrom's or things like that, because their marketing metrics and marketing dollars are spent for different reasons in different ways. And we try to walk through those exercises, give you reasons how, why, and what to spend your money on intelligently.
That's really cool. And you said potentially the end of the year that's going to be out?
I'm hoping so, man. I'm working literally like 10, 12-hour days right now to try to get it done. But I'm close. I think I got about 3 chapters left. Okay. And I just need to hear back from Entrepreneur Press and make sure that they're okay with the deadline, and we'll see what happens.
How daunting is it to write a book? I mean, just in general.
So I've written one before. I have a published book. It's called Tattooed Millionaire. And Chester actually wrote the foreword for it. It came out 3 years ago. It came out the year he passed, so 2017. And it did quite well. And it was very daunting to write a book. I literally had to lock myself in my office for about 3 to 4 hours a day, every single night for about 4 months.
Wow.
But I just decided I was going to do it. I'm one of those guys that if I say I'm going to do something and I put my mind to it, it's going to happen. And this Grey Daze project is a great example of that.
Yeah. And I mean, the time it took you to finally get it all done. I mean, not saying finally in a bad way, but I mean, it just took a long time to get to this point that we're releasing the record.
No, trust me, I feel exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it was daunting, and it was a lot of work for all of us, not just myself.
Yeah. Well, again, June 26th, Amends is the album. It's coming out. And if you don't mind me asking, we'll start to wrap up here, and maybe this will be the last question. I don't know. But with Chester's passing, when was the last time you talked to him before he passed, and what do you remember of that conversation?
So I remember it very vividly. We talked 2 days before he passed. He was in Sedona with his family. Okay. He had to fly back to LA to do a TV commercial. I think it was for State Farm or something like that. His family was going to drive down from Sedona to Phoenix. He was going to fly from LA back to Phoenix. We were all supposed to have dinner Saturday night. We were supposed to start rehearsals on Sunday. And we were talking about all the cool stuff we were going to be able to do. We talked about the logistics of the show. I had a bunch of information I had to give to him on the ticket sales and all the interviews and stuff that we had set up. And then we were starting to talk about opening a new location for Club Tattoo. We had some new opportunities come around, and I walked through that. And he was excited. He was on top of the world. There was nothing in his attitude or demeanor at all that told me he was going to do what he did 2 days later. Nothing. I was shocked when this happened. I could not believe it because I had just talked to him, and there was nothing but positivity coming out of him.
Wow. And it truly shows you that you really do have to check on your friends, and you never truly know what's going on with them.
You know what's crazy though, man? I did check on my friends. That's the weird part about the guilt that comes along with this is I feel guilty every day because I didn't see it coming, and I feel like I somehow should have. And it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to have to live with, to know or to feel like you let your friend down, you know?
Mm-hmm. But he hit it well then, I guess. I mean,
He did.
unfortunately,
He did.
very well. And it's sad to say, and we miss him dearly. I know the anniversary is going to be coming up here again, but I mean, we're going to celebrate it well with this brand new album. We appreciate everything that you're doing with this project and potentially 2 more down the road. As you mentioned, there could be another 2, or at least 1 or 2 records.
Let's work on one.
Yeah, well, we got 1 done, so but you say there's enough material for potentially more. So really looking forward to it. Anything else you want to say to everybody out there? Doesn't matter what it might be.
I just want to say thank you. We feel very gracious. The overwhelming feeling of gratitude is really what I want to relay to the people and listeners for giving us a chance to share more music from Grey Daze and Chester with you. And we hope that you emotionally connect to it the way it was intended. And we just really appreciate everyone giving it a chance.
All right. Well, June 26th, the album drops for everybody this time, not just digitally, but physically.
That's right.
You know what? I'll ask this question too, and then we'll wrap with that. What is the packaging looking like on the inside? Because the front cover is beautiful, and I think you referenced before that this is a tribute to a Depeche Mode album in terms of the cover, right?
Yeah, so that's partly it. So we initially do a rose on the album because the rose for us symbolized loss, compassion, love, a new beginning. That's how the rose got integrated.
Okay.
And then once the color scheme started coming through, we're like, you know what? Chester's favorite album was Depeche Mode, Violator. One of my favorite albums, Depeche Mode, Violator. So we're like, you know what? That's something we want to pay a bit of homage to. It's not a ripoff of that album cover. There's other aspects as to why we use the rose. But since we went with the rose, we chose a color scheme that pays a little bit of homage to Depeche Mode.
Okay. So now talk to me about the inside of the record. Is there photos of the whole band, a biography or some type of tribute or something inside?
So well, there's a lot of thank yous and a lot of nice, kind words that is said on the inside for sure. A lot of the contributors are in there as well. It depends on the type of album because there's several different albums you can get. There's a deluxe version and then there's a deluxe CD. So depending on which one you get, the deluxe version has literally, we put together a 60-page full color photo album of the band, and it is awesome, dude. There's so much cool stuff in there, old concert tickets and handwritten lyric sheets and photos of us rehearsing and photos of us, just really cool stuff, man. And then there's some of that in the regular version as well, just not as much.
Okay, cool. Well, you can still go pre-order it. It's greydaze music.com, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Go pre-order it before it drops. We got about a month before it happens. Sean, thank you so much for the time. Hang tight, though. While I end the broadcast, we'll talk in the backstage area, all right?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, brother.